Now, the thing with sports is that one man's misfortune means opportunity for another and is not going to be available for the remainder of the two T20Is which are left against Sri Lanka. But what about Jitesh Sharma? What's the buzz around him? What kind of a player he is? What's his numbers like? What are his records like? And why him and not the others? We're here to answer all those questions, tell you what kind of a player he really is. Talking about where he comes from, well, he was born in Amravati, Maharashtra, and happens to be a 29-year-old, beg your pardon. And as far as his Ranji trophy debut goes, he made his debut in the year 2015 when he played against Odisha. But even by then, the 29-year-old had a sort of a reputation of an attacking batsman, and his numbers, his strike rate ever since have always been very dominant, and that's been the way he's played. He's always liked to take on the bowlers, and his strike rate really reflects of that. We're going to be talking about that in just a bit. But then what happened after 2015? In the subsequent year, he was picked by the Mumbai Indians in 2016. He didn't though make a mark in that year, but Jitesh Sharma, with his exploits in the domestic league, in the domestic competitions, was doing enough to be knocking on the doors of the selectors. But speaking of how he has been, when you talk about IPL, well, we all saw him in the Punjab colours last season, and he played as a finisher for the Punjab franchise. He also, by the way, was one of the 16 players who were retained by the Punjab franchise. Remember, Punjab had offloaded a large chunk of players, but Jitesh Sharma, with the kind of exploits that we saw from him in IPL 2021, just about did enough to ensure that the franchise believed in his ability and also backed him to be retained. Punjab, as we've seen over all these years, isn't really a team that really has a core, but for him to have sort of entered that, for him to have impressed the management, tells you a thing or two about his ability and the fact that he performs a role which is difficult, because he not just keeps the wicket, he ends up being a finisher as well, and that's a role that he really relished last season of the IPL. And speaking of the last season of the IPL, here's a quick look, in fact, at some of the key numbers as far as his performance last year goes. Well, he featured in 12 matches of the Indian Premier League last year for the Punjab Kings. He scored 234 runs in 10 innings. So in two matches he didn't get to bat, but in 10 innings that he did manage to bat, he scored 234, batting at 5 and 6. He wasn't batting higher up the order, so these 234 runs tell you about the kind of batsman that he is and the kind of rate with which he scores. Now, speaking of the rate at which he scores, his strike rate in those 10 innings that he played last year was 163.63. Now, if you're batting number 5, 6 or lower, that's a very, very good strike rate to have. But his numbers only got better the following year. In 2022, he really upped his game, and that's why perhaps we saw him get retained as well by the Punjab Kings. Now, as far as his performances in the Syed Mushtaq Ali Trophy in the season concluded very recently goes, well, he played for the Vidarbha to begin with, for the Vidarbha team. And speaking of how his numbers really were, well, he scored 224 runs in 10 games. Now, just want to take you back to his numbers in IPL 2021. So 234 runs in 10 innings over there, and just about the same number of runs being scored in the subsequent year in SMAT 2022. But what's the difference? Look at how his strike rate has changed. He's upped his game, as I was saying just a while back. So from 163, he's taken his strike rate to 175. Now, for anyone batting at around 5, 6, you become a very, very prized player. You become a prized possession of the franchise, which is why he possibly was retained as well. Because if you're operating at that strike rate, well, that tells that just gives more confidence to the franchise or for whatever team that you're playing for, that there is somebody coming lower down the order who can still take the attack. And especially if you're in a run chase, players like Jitesh Sharma become absolutely priceless. Now, whether or not he gets a chance to play in the second T20I or the third, we'll have to wait and find out. But Jitesh Sharma, with all his exploits in the domestic games in the IPL, has done enough to impress the selectors and be drafted in this team. He replaces Sanju, Samson, and he's got all the credentials to make his debut for Team India. Now, tell us in the comments section what you have to feel about Jitesh Sharma, his exploit, his talent. We saw him perform very well in the IPL, but how excited are you really? Let us know in the comments section below. For now, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for watching Sports Today.